The man in the grey suit appeared outside the hardware store where I was stocking shelves, and his first words changed everything. "Dominic Hayes?" he asked. I nodded, confused, my hands still dusty from unpacking boxes of screws. "My name is Anthony Rivera. Your grandfather wanted you to have this." He pressed a manila envelope into my hands. "There was a will. Your father lied." Then he walked away, leaving me standing there in my stained work apron, holding proof that the last 6 months of hell had been built on fraud. Before we continue, please drop a comment if you've ever experienced something like this. We'd love to hear your story and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. Let me take you back to where this nightmare started. 6 months ago, I was the operations manager at Hayes Construction Company, the business my grandfather Walter built from nothing over 40 years. I started working there when I was 16, learning every job from the ground up. Grandpa Walter used to say I had concrete in my blood. By the time I turned 42, I was running 3 major projects and had a team of 60 men who respected me. I thought I was being groomed to take over when Grandpa retired. My father Gerald left the family when I was 12. He wanted the money without the work, always fighting with Grandpa about cutting corners and taking shortcuts that could get people hurt. One day Grandpa told him to leave and never come back. That was 30 years ago. I built my life without him. I didn't need him then, and I certainly didn't want him around now. My younger brother Ian was different. He was only 8 when Dad left, and he always resented Grandpa for it. Ian tried working for the company after college, but he lasted 6 months before Grandpa fired him for showing up drunk to a job site. Ian blamed everyone but himself. He drifted between sales jobs and bad investments, always asking me for money, always promising he'd pay me back. He never did. When Grandpa Walter died of a heart attack last February, I was devastated. He was 78 and still came to the office 4 days a week. The funeral was packed with contractors, city officials, and workers whose lives he'd touched. I gave the eulogy. Ian showed up late and left early. Dad didn't come at all, which was fine by me. The nightmare started 3 days after the funeral. I was in Grandpa's office, my office now, I thought, when the door opened. My father walked in like he owned the place. He was 59, but looked older, with grey hair and the kind of face that comes from years of disappointment and cigarettes. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "I'm here about the business," he said, sitting down without being invited. "Your grandfather and I had reconciled before he died. He wanted me back in the family." "That's a lie," I said. "Grandpa wouldn't." "And there's no will," he continued, talking over me. "I checked with his lawyer. He died intestate, which means the business goes to his children. That's me. I'm the only child. You and Ian are grandchildren. You have no legal claim." My stomach dropped. "That's impossible. Grandpa told me he had everything arranged." "Well, he didn't," Dad said, standing up. "I'm taking over Hayes Construction, effective immediately. You can stay on as a worker if you want, but your management position is over. Ian will be the new CEO." Ian? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Ian doesn't know anything about construction. He can't even show up on time. He's my son, and he'll learn. You have until the end of the week to clear out this office. I called Grandpa's lawyer that same day. His name was Howard Chen, and he'd worked with Grandpa for 20 years. "I'm sorry, Dominic," he said on the phone. "I prepared a will for Walter 3 years ago, leaving everything to you, but I can't find it in my files, and it was never filed with the probate court. Without the will, the law is clear. The estate goes to his surviving children." "But you said you prepared it. You remember it." "I do. But my memory isn't evidence. I need the actual document, and it's gone. I've looked everywhere. Could someone have taken it?" There was a long pause. "I don't know. But Gerald came to see me 2 months ago, asking about Walter's estate planning. I didn't tell him anything, but he trailed off. I'm sorry, Dominic. Without that will, there's nothing I can do. The next 3 months were the worst of my life. Dad took over and immediately started making changes. He fired half the office staff and replaced them with people who knew nothing about construction. He started bidding jobs too low to make a profit, just to win contracts. He cut safety budgets. I watched him destroy everything Grandpa built. Ian walked around the office like a king, making decisions that made no sense. He'd order expensive materials we didn't need and forget to order things we did need. Projects fell behind schedule. Clients started complaining. Good workers quit. I tried to fix things quietly, but Ian saw me as a threat. 2 months after Dad took over, Ian fired me. We're restructuring, he said, not even looking me in the eye. Your position has been eliminated. Ian, this is insane. You're running the company into the ground. That's your opinion. Dad says we're doing fine. Security will escort you out. I was 42 years old, with a mortgage and car payment, and suddenly I had no job. I burned through my savings in 6 weeks. The construction industry is tight-knit, and word spread fast that I'd been fired from my own family's company. No one wanted to hire me. They all assumed I'd done something wrong. That's how I ended up at Morrison's Hardware, making $12 an hour, stocking shelves and mixing paint. The manager felt sorry for me, because he'd known Grandpa. Every day I put on the stupid apron and helped weekend warriors pick out drill bits, while my family's company collapsed under my brother's incompetence. I'd been working there for 3 weeks when Anthony Rivera found me. After he handed me the envelope and walked away, I stood there shaking. I waited until my break, then went to my car in the parking lot and opened it. Inside were 3 documents. The first was a copy of Grandpa's will, dated 3 years ago, signed and witnessed, leaving Hayes Construction Company entirely to me. The second was a notarized statement from a woman named Dorothy Fields, who worked as a receptionist at Howard Chen's law office. She swore that my father came to the office 2 months before Grandpa died, claiming he needed to pick up documents for Walter. She gave him access to the file room for 5 minutes. The next day, she noticed Walter's estate planning file was thinner than before. The third document was a photograph, time-stamped and dated. It showed my father at a copy shop, feeding papers into a machine. You could clearly see Grandpa's will in his hands. My father had stolen the will. He'd destroyed the original and removed the copy from the lawyer's office. He'd planned this. He'd known Grandpa was sick, and he'd prepared to steal everything. I was still staring at the documents when my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Did you read it? A man's voice, the same one from outside the store. Who are you? I asked. Why are you helping me? Your grandfather helped my family once a long time ago. He was a good man. What Gerald is doing, it's wrong. That's all you need to know. How did you get this evidence? I have resources. The question is, what are you going to do with it? I'm going to take it to the police. My father belongs in jail. The police can't help you yet. The will theft isn't enough on its own. You need more. You need to prove a pattern of fraud. I can help you find it, but you need to move carefully. Gerald is already suspicious. He knows someone might be digging around. What do you mean? Check the news. Your father made sure you can't come after him easily. I hung up and searched for Hayes Construction Company on my phone. The top result was from that morning's newspaper. The headline made my blood run cold. Hayes Construction CEO files restraining order against former employee, citing threats and harassment. The article quoted Ian extensively. He claimed I'd been making threatening phone calls, showing up at job sites and causing scenes, telling clients lies about the company's finances. None of it was true. I hadn't been near a Hayes construction site since I was fired. But now if I tried to approach my father or brother, if I went to their office with the evidence, I'd be arrested. My father had boxed me in. He'd stolen my inheritance, destroyed my career, and now he'd made it illegal for me to even confront him about it. I sat in my car in the hardware store parking lot, holding proof of his crime, and realized I couldn't use it. Not yet. Not without a plan. That night, I sat in my tiny apartment. I'd had to move out of my house when I couldn't make the mortgage, and stared at the documents. The restraining order changed everything. I needed a lawyer, but lawyers cost money I didn't have. I needed an investigator to gather more evidence, but that cost money too. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "There's someone who can help you. His name is Vincent Mallory. He's a private investigator. He owes me a favor. I already called him. He'll work for free until you win. Meet him tomorrow at Joe's Diner on Maple Street, 7 a.m. I texted back. "Why are you doing this?" The response came immediately. "Because your grandfather saved my father's life on a construction site 20 years ago. Gerald almost caused an accident through negligence. Walter stopped it and fired Gerald to keep the crew safe. My father got to watch me grow up because of Walter Hayes. This is my debt repaid. Win your case. Save the company. That's all I ask." I barely slept that night. The next morning, I showed up at Joe's Diner at 6:45. A man in his 50s was already in a corner booth, drinking coffee. He had sharp eyes and the look of someone who'd seen too much. He waved me over. "Dominic Hayes?" he asked. "I'm Vincent Mallory. Anthony told me what your father did. Let me see the evidence." I handed him the envelope. He studied each document carefully, taking notes. Finally, he looked up. "This is good, but Anthony's right. It's not enough. We need to prove your father's been committing fraud with the company itself. That will strengthen your case and give the prosecutor more to work with. But here's the problem. You can't go near Hayes Construction property because of the restraining order. I can investigate, but I'll need inside information." "I don't have anyone inside," I said. "Everyone who was loyal to me is gone." "What about your brother?" Vincent asked. I almost laughed. "Ian? He's the one who fired me. He's Dad's puppet." "People can surprise you," Vincent said, "especially when they realize they're being used." As if the universe was listening, my phone rang. Ian's name appeared on the screen. I hadn't heard from him since the day he fired me. I showed Vincent, who nodded and gestured for me to answer. "Hello," I said. "Dom?" Ian's voice was shaking. "I need to talk to you. Can you meet me somewhere? Dad won't see us." My heart started pounding. "What's going on?" "Just meet me, please. There's a coffee shop on the east side. Brew Haven. 1 hour. Come alone." I think, his voice cracked. "I think Dad's been lying to me about everything." I left Vincent at the diner and drove to Brew Haven, my mind racing with possibilities. Ian had never called me for help before. In our entire lives, I'd been the one reaching out, trying to maintain some kind of brotherhood despite everything. Now suddenly, he needed me. I didn't trust it, but I had to know what he wanted to say. The coffee shop was nearly empty when I arrived. Ian sat in the back corner, looking terrible. His eyes were red, and he'd lost weight. The cocky attitude I'd seen at the office was completely gone. He looked up when I approached, and I saw something I'd never seen in my younger brother's face before. Genuine fear. "Thanks for coming," he said quietly. "I wasn't sure you would." "What's going on, Ian?" I sat down across from him, keeping my distance. "Why the sudden change of heart?" He stared at his coffee cup for a long moment. "I found something. Something Dad didn't want me to see." He pulled out his phone and opened a folder of photos. "These are screenshots from the company's financial system. I started looking at the books last week because 3 contractors called me saying their payments were late. When I checked, the accounts showed we'd already paid them. But they never got the money." He handed me the phone. The screenshots showed transfer records, large sums of money moving out of Hayes Construction's accounts into something called Riverside Development LLC. Hundreds of thousands of dollars over the past 5 months. "What's Riverside Development?" I asked. That's what I wanted to know, so I looked it up. It's a shell company registered in Delaware. Want to guess who owns it? Ian's hands were shaking. Dad. He created it 2 weeks after Grandpa died. He's been siphoning money from Hayes Construction into his own private account. He's stealing from the company, Dom. From Grandpa's company. I felt a cold fury building in my chest. How much total? As of yesterday, $740,000. The number hit me like a punch. That was enough to cripple the company's cash flow, enough to make us unable to pay contractors and workers. Does he know you found this? I don't think so. I was careful. But there's more. Ian took his phone back and scrolled to another screenshot. Look at this email I found in Dad's deleted folder. He didn't empty his trash, and I recovered it. The email was from my father to someone named Carl Winters, dated 2 weeks before Grandpa died. It read, "Walter's health is declining faster than expected. Once he's gone, everything needs to happen quickly. Make sure the document disappears before probate starts. I'll handle the lawyer's office. After 90 days, the business is mine legally, and then we can begin the real work." Carl Winters is Dad's accountant, Ian explained. The one who set up Riverside Development. Dom. They planned this. They planned to steal the will and then steal from the company, and His voice broke. I helped them. I was so angry at Grandpa for firing me, so resentful that he chose you over me, that when Dad came back and said he'd make me CEO, I believed him. I thought he actually cared about me. But he's just using me to. He needed someone stupid enough to be the face of the company while he robbed it blind. I wanted to feel satisfaction at Ian's misery, wanted to throw his betrayal back in his face. But looking at my younger brother, really looking at him, I saw the kid who used to follow me around when we were children, before Dad left, and everything fell apart. Ian hadn't destroyed our family. Dad had. And now he'd manipulated Ian the same way he'd manipulated everything else. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because I know about the restraining order, and I know it's all lies. You never called me, never threatened anyone. Dad made me sign the paperwork. He said you were trying to sabotage the company out of jealousy, and I believed him because—" Ian wiped his eyes. "Because I wanted to believe him. I wanted to matter to someone. But now I see what he's doing. He's going to drain Hayes Construction until there's nothing left, then declare bankruptcy and disappear with the money. Everyone who works there will lose their jobs. Grandpa's legacy will be gone, and it'll all be my fault because my name is on the company as CEO." "It's not too late to fix this," I said. I pulled out my phone and called Vincent. "I'm with Ian. He has evidence. Financial fraud. Can we meet?" "Bring him to my office," Vincent said immediately. "We need to document everything before Gerald realizes what's happening." An hour later, the 3 of us sat in Vincent's small office above the insurance agency. Ian laid out everything he'd found. The screenshots, the deleted emails, the shell company registration, even records showing my father had been taking consulting fees of $15,000 a month from Hayes Construction. Vincent took notes furiously. "This is exactly what we needed. Combined with the stolen will, we have a clear pattern of fraud. Gerald didn't just steal your inheritance, Dominic. He's been systematically looting the company. This is a criminal case now." "But if we go to the police, Dad will destroy the evidence," Ian said. "He has full access to the company's computer system. He can delete everything." "Then we need to secure the evidence first," Vincent said. "Ian, can you download complete copies of the financial records? Everything showing the transfers to Riverside Development, the emails, all of it?" "I think so. But it'll take time, and if Dad sees me accessing those files, He'll know something's wrong. How much time do you need? Maybe 2 days. I have to do it gradually, a little at a time, so it doesn't trigger any alerts in the system. Vincent nodded. 2 days, but you need to act normal. Go to work. Do your regular routine. Don't let Gerald suspect anything. There's one more thing, Ian said quietly. Dad's planning something big. I overheard him on the phone yesterday, talking about a property deal. Something about finalizing the purchase and offshore accounts. I think he's planning to take the money and run. Soon. That changed everything. We need to move faster, I said. If he liquidates and disappears, we'll never get justice. I'll start a full investigation into Gerald's finances, Vincent said. If he's moving money offshore, there'll be a trail. But Ian's right. We need to secure the company's records first. That's our smoking gun. Over the next 2 days, I barely slept. I kept working my shifts at Morrison's Hardware, acting like nothing had changed. Ian sent me updates by text, encrypted at Vincent's insistence. Downloaded April financial records. Got the email archive. Found more shell companies. There are 3 total. Each message revealed a deeper level of betrayal. My father hadn't just stolen my inheritance. He'd turned Hayes Construction into his personal piggy bank, creating multiple fake companies to hide the money trail. The total he'd stolen was now over $1 million. On the second night, Ian called me at 11 p.m. I got everything, he said. All the financial records, all the emails, all the registration documents for the shell companies. Vincent said to meet him tomorrow morning at 9 to turn everything over. Then he's taking it straight to the district attorney. Good work, Ian, I said. I meant it. My brother had risked everything to do the right thing. Dom, I'm sorry. For all of it. For believing Dad, for firing you, for not standing up for you when— We'll have time to talk about that later, I interrupted. Right now, just focus on staying safe. Don't do anything that might tip Dad off. I won't. See you tomorrow. I should have known it was too easy. The call came at 2 a.m. Unknown number. I answered groggily. Hello? Dominic? It was Ian, but his voice was wrong, tight with fear. Dom, he knows. Dad knows. He was waiting for me when I got home. He has the backup drive. He has everything. I sat up, fully awake now. What happened? He said— Ian's voice dropped to a whisper. He said he's been watching me. He knew about our meetings. He knew about the investigator. He said if I don't recant everything tomorrow, if I don't go to the police and tell them I made it all up, he'll make sure I go to prison for embezzlement. He showed me documents, Dom. Fake documents with my signature, showing that I authorized all the transfers to Riverside Development. He's been setting me up this whole time. Where are you now? In my apartment. He left. But Dom, he said something else. He said you were never going to win because you don't understand how deep this goes. He said Grandpa's death wasn't an accident. My blood ran cold. What does that mean? I don't know, but the way he said it— Ian's voice cracked. Dom, I'm scared. I think we're in over our heads. I think we should just let it go. We can't let it go. He'll destroy everything. Better the company than us. Ian was nearly crying now. You don't know what he's capable of. You left when you were 12 and never looked back. You didn't have to live with him, didn't have to see— He stopped abruptly. See what, Ian? Silence. Ian? See what? Nothing. Forget I said anything. I need to think. I'll call you tomorrow. He hung up before I could respond. I immediately called Vincent. We have a problem. I explained everything Ian had told me. Don't panic, Vincent said. If Gerald has the backup drive, we still have Ian as a witness. He can testify to what he found. Ian's terrified. I don't think he'll testify now. Then we need the original files. They're still in Hayes Construction's computer system, right? Gerald can delete them, but if we can get forensic access to the servers before he does, we can recover everything. How do we get access to the servers? We need a warrant, which means we need to give the DA enough evidence to justify one. The stolen will and the receptionist's statement might be enough if we... Vincent's phone beeped. He looked at the screen and his face went pale. Turn on the news. Channel 7. Now. I grabbed my laptop and pulled up the station's live stream. A reporter stood in front of a building I recognized instantly. Hayes Construction Headquarters. Fire trucks surrounded it. Smoke poured from the upper windows. The fire began around midnight, the reporter was saying. Investigators say it started in the office area where the company's computer servers were located. The entire record system has been destroyed. Arson is suspected, but no arrests have been made. The building's owner, Gerald Hayes, could not be reached for comment. I stared at the screen, watching 40 years of my grandfather's legacy burn. He destroyed the evidence, Vincent said quietly. All of it. The financial records, the emails, everything Ian found. It's gone. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You should have stayed at the hardware store, son. Now you have nothing. No proof, no witnesses, and no case. Stay away from what's mine, or the next fire won't be in an empty building. It was signed with my father's initials. I sat in my car outside the burning building, watching firefighters battle the blaze that had destroyed every shred of digital evidence against my father. Vincent stood beside me, both of us knowing we'd just lost the case before it even started. The threatening text glowed on my phone screen, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt truly defeated. We still have the will, Vincent said, but his voice lacked conviction. And Dorothy's statement about Gerald accessing the files. It's not enough. You said so yourself. We needed the pattern of fraud. Without the financial records, without the emails, it's just my word against his. And he has a restraining order painting me as unstable. Vincent's phone rang. He answered, listened for a moment, then his expression changed. Say that again? He put it on speaker. It was a woman's voice, older, shaking slightly. My name is Dorothy Fields. I'm the receptionist who gave that statement about Gerald Hayes accessing the files. I just saw the news about the fire. I need to tell you something I didn't include in my written statement because I was afraid. But after seeing this, I can't stay quiet anymore. What is it? Vincent asked. 2 months before Walter Hayes died, Gerald came to the office and demanded to see his father's medical records. Mr. Chen refused. Gerald got very angry and said something strange. He said, "The old man's heart is weaker than you think. It won't take much." At the time, I thought he was just being cruel, talking about Walter's age. But after Walter died so suddenly, and then Gerald stole the will, I started wondering. My sister is a nurse at Mercy General. That's where Walter was taken after his heart attack. I asked her to look into what happened that day. My hands gripped the steering wheel. What did she find? Walter Hayes didn't die at home like everyone thinks. He died at the office, at Hayes Construction Headquarters. He was alone with Gerald for 20 minutes before anyone called 911. When the paramedics arrived, Walter was already gone. They found an empty pill bottle near his desk, his heart medication. The bottle was prescribed for 30 days and had been filled 2 days before. It should have been almost full. It was empty. The implication hit me like a truck. You're saying my father. I'm saying your grandfather died from what the doctors called an accidental overdose of his own heart medication. But nobody questioned why a careful man like Walter Hayes would suddenly take 30 pills at once. The medical examiner ruled it accidental because there was no evidence of foul play. But my sister said that if someone wanted to cause a heart attack in a person with cardiac disease, giving them a massive dose of their own medication would be nearly impossible to prove as murder. Vincent and I exchanged looks. "Would your sister testify to this?" he asked. "She's willing to request the medical examiner reopen the investigation. If they look at the timeline, Gerald alone with Walter, the missing pills, the stolen will 2 weeks later, it creates reasonable suspicion." "Mrs. Fields, this changes everything," Vincent said. "Can you come to my office tomorrow morning?" "I'll be there at 8. After she hung up, I couldn't speak for a long moment. My father hadn't just stolen my inheritance. He'd killed for it. "This is bigger than fraud now," Vincent said quietly. "If we can build a case that Gerald caused Walter's death, even if we can't prove murder, it opens everything up for investigation. The DA will get warrants. They'll dig into Gerald's finances, his phone records, everything. But we still don't have the financial evidence from Hayes Construction. The fire destroyed it all." Vincent smiled grimly. "Actually, we might. Ian said he downloaded everything to a backup drive, which Gerald took. But before that, where did Ian get the files?" "From the company's computer system." "Right. And how do most people back up important files these days?" I understood. "The cloud. Every modern business uses cloud backup services. Hayes Construction must have one. The files Ian accessed were probably automatically backed up to a remote server. The office burned, but the cloud backup is still out there. How do we access it?" "We get a warrant. But first we need probable cause. Dorothy's statement about Walter's death gives us that. We take it to the DA first thing tomorrow." I barely slept that night, replaying Dorothy's words. My father had murdered my grandfather, the man who'd raised me, who'd taught me everything about integrity and hard work. His own son had killed him for money. The rage I felt was beyond anything I'd experienced before. The next morning, Vincent and I met Dorothy at his office, then drove straight to the district attorney. Her name was Patricia Okoye, a woman in her 50s with a reputation for being tough but fair. We laid out everything: the stolen will, the receptionist's statements about both the file theft and the suspicious death, the fire that destroyed evidence, my father's threatening text message. DA Okoye listened carefully, taking notes. When we finished, she leaned back in her chair. "This is compelling, but circumstantial. I can request the medical examiner reopen Walter Hayes' death investigation, but that takes time. The stolen will is clearer. That's definitely fraud. Combined with the arson and the threatening text message, I have enough for warrants." "Can you get access to Hayes Construction's cloud backup?" Vincent asked. "I can get a warrant for their business records, yes. If files were automatically backed up to the cloud, we'll find them." She looked at me. "Mr. Hayes, I need to be honest with you. Even if we find evidence of financial fraud, proving your father caused your grandfather's death will be extremely difficult. The medical examiner already ruled it accidental. Overturning that requires new evidence, not just suspicion." "I understand," I said. "But at least we can stop him from stealing anything else." DA Okoye nodded. "Give me 24 hours to get the warrants. In the meantime, stay away from Gerald. Don't contact him. Don't go near Hayes Construction. Let the law handle this." The next day felt endless. I went through the motions at Morrison's Hardware, stocking shelves and helping customers, while my mind raced. Vincent called at 4 p.m. "The DA got the warrants. Police are executing them now at Hayes Construction and at Gerald's home. They're bringing in forensic accountants to analyze the cloud backup files." How long until we know something? Could be days or weeks. Financial investigations take time. But things moved faster than expected. That evening, my phone rang. Ian's number. I answered immediately. "Dom?" His voice was barely a whisper. "The police were just here. They arrested Dad. They found everything in the cloud backup, all the transfers, all the emails, everything I'd downloaded. But Dom, there's something else. Something I need to tell you in person. Can you meet me? Where? Grandpa's grave, Sunset Hills Cemetery. 1 hour. Please come alone. I almost said no. Meeting someone alone in a cemetery sounded like the setup for a trap. But something in Ian's voice made me agree. Sunset Hills Cemetery sat on a hill overlooking the city. I arrived as the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the headstones. I found Grandpa's grave easily. I'd been there dozens of times since the funeral. Ian stood beside it, his back to me. "I'm here," I called out. Ian turned, and I saw tears streaming down his face. "I couldn't tell you before. I was too ashamed. But now that Dad's been arrested, you need to know the truth." "What truth?" "I was there that day. The day Grandpa died. I came to the office to ask him for money. Again. I was broke, desperate. Dad was already in Grandpa's office when I arrived. I heard them arguing through the door. Dad was saying something about pills, about how Grandpa needed to take his medication. Grandpa said he'd already taken it. Dad insisted, saying he'd counted and Grandpa had missed doses. Grandpa trusted him. I heard him say, 'All right, Gerald, if you think so.' My blood turned to ice. "I didn't think anything of it then," Ian continued, his voice breaking. "I left before they saw me, because I didn't want to interrupt. 20 minutes later, the ambulance came. I watched from my car. I watched them bring Grandpa out on a stretcher. I watched him die. And I never told anyone I'd heard that conversation because I didn't understand what it meant. Not until 3 days ago, when Dorothy called the DA, and I finally put it together. You knew Dad killed him, and you didn't say anything. I didn't know. Not for sure. Not until I found the financial records and realized Dad had been planning this for months. The will theft, the shell companies. It was all premeditated. And then I understood what I'd heard that day. Dad tricked Grandpa into overdosing on his own medication. He murdered him, Dom. And I could have stopped it if I'd just stayed, if I'd just gone into that office. Ian collapsed to his knees beside Grandpa's grave, sobbing. I stood there, torn between rage at my father and pity for my brother. Ian had been weak, complicit in covering up the theft, but he hadn't known about the murder. Not really. Not until it was too late. "Did you tell the DA about this?" I asked. "I gave a statement this morning. She said it's enough to reopen the death investigation and potentially charge Dad with murder. Combined with Dorothy's testimony and the financial motive, she thinks she can make a case." We stood there in silence as the sun disappeared below the horizon. 2 brothers at their grandfather's grave, finally on the same side, but only after everything had been destroyed. The trial took 8 months. My father was charged with first-degree murder, grand theft, fraud, and arson. The cloud backup files Vincent had predicted turned out to be the key. They contained everything Ian had found, plus more. Dad had stolen over $1.2 million from Hayes Construction. The forensic accountants traced the money to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, but the murder charge was harder to prove. The medical examiner reopened the investigation, and a new autopsy report confirmed that Walter Hayes had indeed died from a massive overdose of his heart medication. Ian's testimony about overhearing the conversation, combined with Dorothy's statement about Dad's threatening words 2 months earlier, established premeditation. The jury deliberated for 3 days. They found him guilty on all counts. Gerald Hayes was sentenced to 35 years in prison. He was 60 years old. He would likely die behind bars. The day of the sentencing, I stood outside the courthouse with Vincent. Ian was there too, looking hollow. The trial had destroyed him. He'd been forced to testify against our father, to admit his own complicity in the initial cover-up, to relive the moment he'd heard Grandpa's murder being committed without understanding it. "The will's been validated," Vincent said. "Hayes Construction is legally yours now. You can take over, rebuild it." I looked at the building that used to house our family's company. Dad's theft and mismanagement had driven away most of the clients and workers. The reputation Grandpa spent 40 years building was in ruins. It would take years to recover, if it even could. "I don't know if I want it anymore," I said quietly. Ian spoke up for the first time that day. "Grandpa would want you to try. He built that company for you." "He built it for the family, but there's no family left, is there?" The three of us stood there, me, Ian, and Vincent, and the weight of everything that had been lost hung in the air. Yes, I'd won. My father was in prison. I'd gotten my inheritance back. Justice had been served. But Grandpa was still dead. The business was gutted, and my relationship with Ian, already fractured, had been shattered beyond repair by the trial. He'd done the right thing in the end, but I couldn't forget that he'd chosen Dad over me, that he'd fired me, that he'd been there the day Grandpa died, and said nothing. 2 weeks later, Ian left town. He called to say goodbye, told me he couldn't stay in a city where everyone knew his role in what happened. I didn't try to stop him. Maybe someday we'd rebuild our relationship, but not now. Not yet. I did take over Hayes Construction, but I sold it 6 months later. Another company bought the name and the client list, kept on the few workers who remained, and gave me enough money to pay off all of Grandpa's debts and start fresh. I used part of the money to set up a scholarship fund in Walter Hayes's name for young people interested in the construction trades. The rest I kept, and I started a new business, not construction, but construction consulting, helping family businesses create succession plans and protect themselves from internal fraud. I named it Rivera Consulting, after Anthony Rivera, the mysterious stranger who'd started everything by handing me that envelope. I never saw him again after that day at the hardware store, but I made sure every client I worked with learned what can happen when trust is betrayed and greed overtakes family bonds. On the 1-year anniversary of Grandpa's death, I visited his grave alone. I told him about the trial, about the business, about Ian leaving. I told him I was sorry I couldn't save what he'd built, but that I was trying to honor his legacy in a different way. As I stood to leave, I noticed something near the headstone, a single envelope, manila, just like the one Anthony Rivera had given me. I picked it up and opened it. Inside was a photograph, old, faded, showing a young construction worker standing next to my grandfather at a job site. On the back, written in pencil, "Your grandfather saved my life. I saved his legacy. We're even now. Live well. Anthony." I looked around the cemetery, but I was alone. I folded the photo carefully and put it in my wallet. Then I walked back to my car, carrying the weight of everything that had happened, everything that had been lost and gained, and drove toward whatever came next. My father stole my inheritance, murdered my grandfather, and destroyed my family. I got justice, got my money, and got my revenge. But standing at that grave, holding that photograph, I realized something. Winning had cost me almost as much as losing would have, and I would carry that truth for the rest of my life. Thanks for listening to this story. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more stories like this. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments.